Welcome to Esker Live. My name is Chaz Narwicz. I'm a business development manager at Esker. And Ashley, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Ashley MacHolda, Business Development Manager, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about business process automation today. So,
Yep, very excited. Yeah. So for today, Ashley and we're going to be talking about a few things. First is going to be defining business process automation. What is it? Providing some examples, and then getting into, okay, how will automation assist with some of these business processes that are stuck in the past and antiquated. And then after that, we're going to give some examples of where we've seen how business process automation has helped companies achieve goals, improved morale, improved employee retention, and provided a great ROI. So that's the plan for today. And just to start things off, we're gonna start really general, and I'm gonna ask Ashley a question. Ashley, how would you define BPA, business process automation?
yeah, going back to the basics. So, business process automation is the use of software or technology to kind of automate repeatable tasks, oftentimes multi-stop business transactions, and often in kind of back office functions for organizations. So it's using technology to eliminate those kind of mundane tasks that you see in the back office.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. And I think that there's a couple of examples that come to mind, and I know that we're gonna have a lot of people from both the finance side and the IT side on today. And just thinking, how you mentioned, Ashley, mundane tasks. All right, before ERP systems came out, everything was managed manually. Everything was managed, within Excel documents, however it might be, and or even sticky notes. So one good example of that, of automation, that in business process area, I would say one of the main ones is the ERP system. So there's a lot of different areas that are kind of overlooked when it comes to that. So that's what we'll be getting in today. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, Ashley, with that definition. So um, what yeah, I guess just to get right into it too, is there what types of automation initiatives are you seeing in the marketplace right now, Ashley? And how are they? What are the goals, I guess, surrounding those? So I guess two-part question. Hey, what are they trying to automate? And then second, why do these of initiatives come up in the first place?
yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously the digital era is kind of a coined term that we hear all the time, and organizations going through digital transformation, and it can mean a completely different things for every organization, and they might be further along in their journey. There's actually recently a Harvard Business School survey done, and I think they had taken over 1,500 senior executives, and we're talking about digital transformation, and they said 97% of respondents agreed that if organizations aren't being digitally forward thinking, they won't remain competitive. I think we saw with a lot of organizations the pandemic highlighted for so many organizations that maybe were still kind of manual in processes, where they had area of opportunity that they might be able to use business process automation and digitally transform. So at an overarching, where I see things is mainly in the accounting and finance world, because specializing in procure to pay, I'm dealing with a lot of organizations where they've had manual processes within their AP processes. So they're still printing out invoices and having the CFO sign off on them for approval for paying, which became very difficult when we were all having to work from home. So,
Yep.
additionally, kind of manual entry. But what about yourself on the order to cash side? What do you typically see?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think that, like you mentioned, the competitive marketplace, everybody's talking about the great resignation, things like that. And if you are, well, like you mentioned on the accounting and finance side, but also on the customer service side, if there's a lot of manual, redundant, tedious tasks that are being done by employees, a lot of the time they don't want to come to work, they're not engaged in what they're doing. And being able to provide some type of automation there and give some ownership over to those tasks, it gives some opportunity to do other things rather than just manually enter data. I think that's really important. So I know that that's pretty broad. So I'll get into, what I've seen in the market is that there's a specific example that comes to mind that where we helped a company. Uh, there was a company that was looking at automating the inbound order entry process. And what happened was they had two customer service reps that actually had left the company because it was just too overwhelming for them to be getting all these orders and entering them in constantly throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, they had customers saying, "Hey, where's my order?" And they hadn't even entered into the ERP system yet. So that's an example of, okay, hey, the employees at the company aren't happy. There's turnover, and it's important to provide these employees with a better a better process to work with so that they can actually grow as employees, grow as individuals. So yeah, I think accounting and finance is what you've seen a lot in the marketplace on. And then on the customer service side, that's what I've seen, is that if you don't provide some type of business process automation, if things are tedious and there's manual workflows, then there's going to be turnover. And because a lot of companies are investing in this right now, so it's kind of a swing towards digital transformation where, like you mentioned, COVID has helped with that, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And Chaz, I don't know if you would say the same, but I know for you were saying, the customers and then also the employee experience. I think we're also used to having things at our fingertips now of having a great end-to-end experience. I know for organizations on the procure to pay side, the suppliers became very important because with the pandemic, there was also the supply chain backlog. And so people
Mm.
wanted to make it easier for them to be, for them as an organization to have their suppliers want to deal with them and speed up that process. So similarly to what you were saying on the customer side, but maybe we can talk about a little bit how in this digital era, how it's kind of the full ecosystem that comes into effect with the business process automation.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, what you're saying is, okay, what what is the way to make is there a way that we can make both of you know, our employees, our customers, and our vendors happy without, sacrificing those relationships while automating? And I think that that's a conversation that happens a lot because I'll just go from the customer side. If your customers are ordering from a specific organization, they want to order the same way they've always had. It's easy, it's simple, it's what's ingrained in their behavior. And if all of a sudden, as an organization, you provide a different way for them where they have to change their process, a lot of the time that harms that relationship a little bit. Where if they have already been sending an email with order information the entire time they've been doing business with you, if you say, hey, now you have to log on to this portal or that portal and provide your information that way, a lot of the time that can cause some friction in that customer and company relationship, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to be able to both make your company more efficient, but then make that order entry process more efficient. And we call it's something, a term that we're using a lot is called positive sum growth. And being able to grow your customers order volume, being able to grow your vendor invoice volume and not have to make them change the behavior, we found that to be really important. So um yeah, and I think that, I don't know if that answered your question, Ashley.
No, no, it was great. It was great. It's obviously when, your company's succeeding, you touched on obviously your employees, you want to retain your employees. We're in the great resignation. You want to make it attractive, but you also want to make it attractive for your customers to be placing orders and then your suppliers to be supplying you with stuff. So it's a whole ecosystem that can take advantage of the business process automation and making it easier without sacrificing one way or the other.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Maybe
Definitely.
we bring it back. I know we started to get into some examples of why people would start to, the bigger overarching issues of why organizations are starting to look at digital transformation. But what's some of the technologies you see being leveraged
Mhm.
in process automation?
Yeah, I think right now for all different processes within an organization, finance, accounting, supply chain, customer service, if you're not looking at some type of machine learning product, then you're falling behind when it comes to that because a lot of these processes, when it comes to order to cash, procure to pay, they're repeatable transactions. And like I'd said before, redundant. So why give the redundant and repeatable tasks to people who will get bored with that, where you can have a software system or whatever it might be that will be able to learn over time those repeatable tasks and then automate them. So the first one that we're seeing is machine learning. And the overarching, of course, the big term right now is artificial intelligence. So that's the overarching term you can use for the specific technologies that come within it. So first is machine learning, which is part of a broader AI type solution. The second one is deep learning, so leveraging big data and being able to automate processes based on that big data. So machine learning coupled with deep learning can definitely help in automating these processes. An example on the order management side, if a company is taking orders from a specific customer where maybe they had already seen that order come in before in that format, if you're not leveraging that data and using deep learning to be able to automate that, then that's an area that you're missing out on because it's really all about getting employees away from doing those repeatable tasks. And those two technologies are the two that we're probably seeing the most used and probably the most effective. But the other one I wanted to ask you about, Ashley, is that to throw it back on you, is what's the one that a hot button technology that's part of AI, RPA. What have you heard about RPA in the marketplace? Why have you heard and where have you heard has it worked and where have you heard maybe it hasn't worked as well?
Yeah, absolutely. RPA, it seems to be the hot word, like you said, in the marketplace. Everyone is talking about RPA, so robotic process automation. RPA is great in aspects of things that are repeatable kind of tasks that, such as we see it oftentimes in the accounts payable space for maybe you need to go to your supplier's invoice portal and pull down those invoices in order to start processing. So it's the same exact task, and there is a robot that can do that and can pull that. So your people are not doing that. Um, where so RPA works great in those areas. However,
Mm,
bots are made for those things and to do a full process automation. So if, for example, on the invoice side, if you're to intake the invoice, to go through um, capturing the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, all the way to posting, you would have hundreds and hundreds of bots trying to do
mm-hmm.
those tasks. And that's where machine learning, like you were talking about, is really more effective in that area. So bots and AI play really well together for making a streamlined process. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that. It obviously it's a hot topic out there. Their RPA is great. It plays an important role in process automation. It's
Mm-hmm.
just depending on what organizations are looking to achieve and where the efficiencies are. If it's for some, easy repeatable task where you can get a bot to do that every single day, same thing. It's never going to change. It's always going to be constantly going to the portal, pulling those invoices and depositing somewhere. That's a great area for a bot to be leveraged.
Yeah, I think that you're completely hit the nail on the head there that RPA is specific. It's for specific processes that are the more simple processes, where if you're looking at business process, more complex, say order management, accounts payable, cash application, things like that, a lot of the time there has to be some sort of judgment that has to be a human judgment that says, okay, this came from this customer, they did this because of this. This came from this vendor. There's some tribal knowledge there, whatever it might be, and there needs to be some additional type of validation or basically having decisions that can only be made by a human. So I think it's really important that people understand that RPA is not for those type of processes, and machine learning, deep learning can help with those more complex ones. But also, it's not like you want to go ahead and implement these type of business process automation solutions and not have employees engaged in them, because that's important. It's almost like augment the employee experience rather than replacing employees with these type of technologies. A lot of companies get scared where they're like, oh, is it AI going to replace me? And it's really great because AI is going to allow customers to, or allow companies and their employees to do more value added tasks and to grow, to expand, to maybe whatever it might be, create new products or create new marketplaces, you know?
Agree, and I think you land on a thing, and it immediately flashes to me like Hollywood of how they've portrayed, robots and taking over and everything like that. And the reality is business process
Yeah.
automation still needs humans in it, and it's to make their user experience better, right? To help with not having to sit and 10 key all day, but rather have a higher value added task that they're doing, and they're doing more analysis of the data.
Mm.
But they're not completely eliminated from the process. It's still very much human oriented. It's just more about the user experience and automating those more mundane, repeatable tasks. But
Yes, yes, I agree. And if anything, I think it's going to create a whole nother set of jobs and opportunities too. I mean, when being able to use this type solution, so having people that specialize in it, and even getting better analytics, it's going to propel organizations to newer heights, and the economy in general. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So with that, obviously we go into analytics. What are some of the key struggles that organizations maybe have, and how will that help with business process automation, and
Hmm.
more so on that AI machine learning? How does that help?
Yeah. Yep. So your question is, okay, how will analytics help companies overcome some of the issues they're having, and how will technology enable that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the analytics side, I mean, you look at a specific business process I can look at that to answer this question. And there's a example that I can use. There's a company that I was working with, manufacturing company of irrigation supplies. They wanted to grow from 200 million in revenue to 500 million. And the analytics that they were looking at were, okay, how long does it take us to fulfill an order after it comes in? How long does it take us to process that order? And being able to streamline those two areas and have visibility on the analytics within there, that was really important to them. And the machine learning, the AI component comes in because if you're able to process orders quicker, fulfill them quicker, that enables those happier customers. So that's one example where looking at analytics within an organization, and being able to leverage technology can help improve those, and being able to see that and to measure it over time. It's really valuable for those companies because, I mean, like I said before, the first thing I said was 200 million to 500 million in revenue is where they wanted to grow. So that's the end goal, and that is a metric right there. But to be able to dig down and analyze even deeper, and be able to improve the processes that lead up to that, that was uh, the biggest thing for them. Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah, do you have an
Yeah.
example of that maybe you can share?
Yeah.
I have a feeling there's a reason you asked that. Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I think for many organizations, the lifeline of their organization is the cash, right? The cash flow.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
obviously it's been that way since business has been going around. So it became more important and imperative for organizations during the pandemic because they needed to understand where cash was going out, and have more control over that spend management.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
in business process automation on the procure to pay side, a lot of organizations haven't had visibility over their spend management, and so those analytics allow them to see where they might be able to pay some suppliers earlier and capitalize on an early payment discount, where they're maybe getting dinged, and paying overage fees for kind of not paying on time. There's oftentimes, I know I talked to an organization and they had realized that they had been paying in duplicate payments almost $200,000. And it was just because they didn't have visibility to who was processing what invoice, and supplier wasn't coming and saying, "Hey, you're paying us twice." They were just taking that. And so
Yep.
when the pandemic happened and
We'll take
cash
that money.
became yeah, exactly. They're like, "Hey, great. It's cool."
Yeah.
Um but when the pandemic happened, you really needed to stay tight on those cash controls, and so they needed visibility over where payment was going out and where they were spending money. And then was there ways to then analyze that, and are they getting a better return with this supplier where they could invest more into that, get more early payment discounts. But also organizations needed to expand their supplier networks as well, because there was such a backlog.
Mhm.
So business process automation gives companies a lot more insight into that full cash conversion cycle of seeing where, like you were saying, obviously the orders, and they wanting to grow to a certain level, they also need to understand where they're spending their money,
Mhm.
and where cash is going out, and analyzing that. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it-
100%.
yeah, and I think, on the human level, it can help with reducing kind of the human errors, the duplicate payments and stuff like that, when you have a system that's able to flag all of that information and make it pretty easily to highlight where where there's opportunity.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right, being able to mine almost be like a data mining type situation where you can see the different get in depth with the statistics and the analytics and being able to fix that. So if you can't really measure what you can't, I don't know what the quote is. You can't measure what you can't manage or something like that.
yeah,
Can't manage
absolutely.
what you can't measure. So I think that's what it was. But if you're not able to see that and have visibility on the reporting or get in depth in it, then there's no way to fix it. So that's BPA, another big reason to have an overarching initiative to automate some of these processes.
Yeah.
Um,
What would you feel are the most important processes to automate? Is there one that is the biggest return for an organization, or
yeah, that's a really good question. So obviously we've been talking about order to cash, procure to pay, the two different cycles, and there a lot of the time. So like I was saying before, there's business process automation can apply to multiple different solutions, multiple different types of companies. Like I said before, ERP systems that helps finance companies, that really helped, or finance organizations and departments to automate
Mhm.
those processes. Customer relationship management, CRM that helps sales teams, and these are two um, solutions that have helped greatly, where every company now has them. A lot of the time, the redheaded stepchild of the organization is on the AR side, on the accounts receivable side, where it should be a strategic focus to be able to get cash in the door, like you were saying, Ashley, to collect cash quicker. And well, you were talking about on the AP side, but what you said was relevant to the
Yeah.
AR side. So I would say that's right now the biggest interest we're seeing from CFOs, from a lot of controllers, is on the AR side, specifically something like credit management, being able to set up a customer, understand their credit with all the volatility going on in the market right now, being able to make sure your customers have the credit to be able to pay you and have visibility surrounding that, as well as to be able to have a workflow within it. Another one would be collections management. A lot of the time, if you talk about redheaded stepchild, the collections teams that I speak with, they are that stepchild of the entire finance organization. They're the last one that gets new toys to play with, I guess you could say. So being able to collect money quicker, have visibility on that, that's important. I've talked to a lot of companies in the marketplace that have seen that, have pinpointed that. And I know that some of the consulting firms we work with have seen collections as being a focal point for a lot of companies because they need to get cash in the door quicker. So those are two of the areas. There's obviously many more within finance, within supply chain accounting that we could talk about, but I would say those are two: the onboarding of clients as well as collecting of cash. It's two really important areas that we're seeing right now. So I don't know if you had something that you were that a part of the procure to pay process that
No, I
might
think,
be most relevant right now for you. Yeah.
I think so many organizations that are choosing to automate, either AR or accounts receivable or AP. It goes hand in hand, right? Because it is that cash in, cash out. And so organizations that decide to do both processes, and one may be more imperative for the company. And I think that's an organizational, where do they see they have the biggest return? But organizations that do have the ability to automate both those processes, I think they're going to be able to unlock a ton of strategic value because they'll have full insight in when cash is coming in and when cash is going out. But I would agree with everything you said. Just similarly on the accounts payable side, people want to be able to control what money is going out the door, just as much
Mm,
as they need to bring in money that they've had outstanding. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, any other customer examples or um
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, on the collection side, there was one company that I was thinking of, construction company, building materials company supplying uh, building materials to the construction industry, hot market right now. It's probably one of the most hot industries that we see, and it was another. It goes back to what I was saying before on the collection side. They wanted to have visibility over the full accounts receivable spectrum, see what's coming in, see where they need to collect, because sometimes their outstanding receivables were so high that it was an issue because they're not getting that money, they're not able to invest it, they're not able to spend it, and having visibility over where that money is and who needs to be collected on, for them that was really important, as well as having company. We're talking about business process automation, also another big area uh, where it really helps companies is a consolidation and visibility over multiple business units and multiple ERP platforms. I think that being able to aggregate those into one spot, and it's funny I say aggregate, but this company that I was speaking to would always think of it as aggregates because it's, they're in the concrete aggregate industry. It's just
that's
that's
funny.
neither here or there, but being able to aggregate those divisions, those ERPs into one system and being able to see that where holistic AR, that was really important to them. So that's one example that I had. I don't know if you had one that you were thinking of.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things we haven't talked about yet is that organizations also do business process automation for compliance and making sure they're globally compliant. I mean, it's a huge thing, and um, a lot of organizations haven't had visibility over that, and that's an area that business process automation can help as well. So I've worked with organizations where, yeah, they're doing business in other countries and there's the compliance issues, but then also like VAT tax and stuff like that, and everything
Mm-hmm.
has to roll through the government. So business process automation really helps streamline that process for them, so that way they can make sure um, they're doing business correctly too.
Absolutely. I mean, the reporting and tracking of documents, data, payments, everything involved with that processing, uh, that's really important because anytime you adjust an invoice information or adjust order information, that needs to be tracked and possibly audited on. And to have an archive, visibility
Yeah.
on the tracking of that is really important. So I've seen that all the time on the order to cash side as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think most, business process automation solutions are built on good gap practices, which is very important,
Hmm.
especially for that auditing aspect and streamlining those areas and making sure it's easier for the organization at a whole to have visibility over that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Should we take some of the
Yeah,
questions
let's
in
dive into the
here?
questions for sure.
Okay. So someone asked, how long does it take to implement a typical automation solution? You want
So,
to?
you want me to take that one? I'll
Yeah,
go.
go for it.
I'll run with that. I think that that really is dependent on the complexity of a business process or of a company. It depends, like I was saying before. There's a few things that depends on business units, what countries you're in, what ERP systems. But simplest, if you want to make an adjustment or an improvement on the AP side or whatever it be, cash application, you're looking at, it could be dependent on IT engagement, 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of the time, uh, that that is possible, but sometimes what we've seen in the marketplace and what we've seen at our own company is that depending on the complexity, it could be longer than that. Could be 12 weeks, could be 16 weeks. Just really depends on the individual company, the individual ERP system, and things like that. And we're talking. Um, so I guess the answer to that is it varies, but it could be
That's
quick. You could see some high ROI pretty quick if you are a simple if you are okay with starting simple and then expanding. So next, I'm gonna throw one back to you, Ashley. How did you manage a change like this? Are people all right, so the question is, are people usually able to adopt these type of new processes, and how is change management is the change usually managed within an organization? What have you seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things I think is if it's a at large organization initiative and leaders, they need to make sure that people are bought into the why, a why of they're doing this, right? From the beginning. And change is scary for everyone. It's change is constant in our life. It's the only thing that will remain constant, but it can be very scary for people that might have been doing the same type of process, and they know how to do that job, right? So you have to get them of the why and the desired outcome of why you would be doing this within your organization and how that's going to directly affect their role. It's going to be a better user experience for them. And I would say get those people that are going to be your end to end people doing it involved early on. Get
Quick as
them bought in
possible.
as quick as
Yeah.
possible. Exactly, get them involved early on in the conversations, in the demonstrations. um, Really seek to understand what they're looking for, and how they feel about it, what current pains they really have and challenges, and can the business process automation address some of that, and what would that do to improve their lives or livelihoods, etc.
Mhm.
um, and
Mhm.
how will it make it easier for them. And I think once you can get them in a positive mindset of how that's going to address these pains and challenges, maybe they're spending 2 hours every morning just triaging, okay, what invoices came in through the email, etc. What could they do with that additional 2 hours? Does that free up time for them, to do more of the analysis work, to have better supplier relationships? um,
Mhm.
does it allow for them not to have to be working overtime every single day?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think getting people bought in early on, and understanding their why of why the organization's looking to move that way.
Yeah, and it's like there's gonna be two different sets of people. One person is gonna be the person that loves data. I mean, well, some people love data entry, but the person that doesn't want to change as much. And then there's going to be the person that says, "Hey, new software solution, this is awesome." So you really have to show that person that doesn't want that change, because not everybody's going to want it. You have to show that person, get them involved. That all right, this is what else can you do in these other 4 hours? You're gonna have all this time to do other things. It's gonna make your life better. Like you said, that 4 hours could
100%.
be overtime, and then they don't want to work overtime. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, obviously we're talking about technology, but how can you make the narrative more human centric, right? So it's
Hmm.
about the humans involved in the process, even though you're using technology. So making sure that, working with the leaders and people from the top and bottom, to make sure you're having that narrative. But
Hmm.
let's see, is there another question in here? I know we've talked about kind of the ROI of the top processes we're seeing organizations automate and why, but do you have a recommendation, for which process to be automated first?
Yeah, I think that I can take that one. I mean, order to cash, procure to pay. That's what we've really been talking about today. And I think that it really depends on the company. Again, I don't mean to escape these, but there's so many companies are operating so many different ways that say for one at one company they have a lot of vendors and they're paying a lot of vendors, they're getting a lot of invoices, and that company probably has an issue there because if they're being manually entered into an ERP system or whatever, however they're being managed, that's going to be the process that they need to automate first, where maybe they have two customers or three customers. They're like a big company that only sells to a couple of big customers, and there's not a lot of there's not a lot of issues on the other side, on the order management side, or maybe they don't have an issue with AR either, and they're collecting well. It's all via credit card and it's all automatic. There's nothing going on. So really depends on the company. That company would want to automate the procure to pay side first because there is an issue there. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's all dependent on the organization and what's going on and at large initiatives. I think there was another. Yeah, I think. Okay, well, what is the best way starting point for the infrastructure project manager to utilize the benefit RPA?
I would say that to look at the simplest tasks that could be done with RPA and to maybe talk to other companies about how they used RPA in those tasks. I think that the starting point for a PM, if it's a PM is managing maybe the RPA initiatives, I think that that's what's being said here. Um, yeah, I think that starting point is first evaluating what processes can be done with RPA, maybe talking to a consulting or other type of firm that has done this project before, or even a peer company, to understand that, because RPA is not going to be able to be used for everything, even though it can be used for a lot of things and be easily used for a lot of things and deployed that way, but for more the simpler processes and tasks. So I mean, my recommendation, yeah, would be understanding what processes it can be used with before deploying anything or before investing in an RPA solution. I don't know. Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add there,
No,
Ashley? Yeah.
no, I would agree. I think, obviously on the procure to pay side where I've seen it leveraged the most is pulling those invoices down from a supplier portal that, they might have through one of their suppliers. But I would agree. I think it's assessing what processes are actually available for RPA, and that you could get the most bang for the buck. Um, in regards to, we're going to kind of wrap up here, but we do have an outstanding event coming up, a virtual event on April 7th. That is a finance event. It's going to be the future of the digital CFO. I know we have a couple different people speaking on that, the Hackett Group and Invista, as well as C-level suite from Esker. So Chaz, I
Hmm.
don't know if you have any other additional insights into that as well.
No, that's going to be a great event. I think there's going to be a lot of unbelievable insights there. So please register for that. And we appreciate everybody's time today listening to this Esker live event. And we had a great, well, I had a great time, Ashley. I don't know about
Yeah.
you.
No, it was fun. It was fun. It's fun, and we're excited to that we had some people join. And yeah, thanks again for the time today, guys. And obviously, if there's anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Happy to always have further conversations around business process automation.
All right. Thanks, everyone.